Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz. Welcome to Communications from Home, which is my weekly evening live stream. And I am so happy to be with you guys tonight. We've got some good stuff to do. I just want to make sure I apply the right thing here. There we go. So tonight's Tuesday, June 1st. June 1st. It has been May went by like that, didn't it? So fast. And tonight we're going to be talking about our meditation practice, how much it's changed over the years, and what does that mean? Because sometimes we think that something should stay the same, and it doesn't. Nothing does. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm hoping that you guys will be able to give me your insight, share your stories about your meditation practice and the changes that you've come to over the years, over the last few months, and specifically over 2020, right? So tonight is all about our meditation practices and changes. And I have to say that I have received some validation and confirmation about those changes that have happened in my meditation practice recently with a bunch of synchronicities. So we're going to share about that as well. So welcome everybody in Facebook and also in YouTube. Good to have you here. And if you're watching by the recorded show, thank you so much for making time to join us that way as well. And if you'd like to share your stories with us about your changes with your meditation practice, that will be so helpful. I tell you, we learn so much from each other. We really do. And so when we have conversations, we can pick those pieces that ring true for us individually. Okay. And speaking of that, one of the things I know for sure is that whenever we run across posts, videos, live streams, anything that helps us with our growth, our spiritual growth, and our growth here as human beings on this planet, it's always good to share, especially if you think that this is something helpful to you, right? So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be really helpful, and also doing a like on the video. Why do we ask that? Oh, it's that Facebook stuff. It's the logarithms, so that it's shared more often in the news feed. Yeah. So I'm going to say hi to a few people who are popping in to join me for this evening. And look who's here. Barbie's here. Hi, Barbie. Good to have you here. It's always good to see you in the house. And Rob's here too. He said, I loved and shared. You'll just have to deal with it. Exactly. Thank you for doing that, Rob. And he also says, greetings from Facebook land. Up next will be is on the Lennon Sisters tribute to Black Sabbath. Oh my goodness. That's something. Rochelle's here too. Hello, Rochelle. It was so good to talk to you today too. And thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. Because, some people have some difficulty really finding certain live streams. And so whenever we can help them out, kind of makes you feel good, doesn't it? Does me. It does me. So tonight is all about our meditation practices. Now, for me, starting my meditation practice consciously about 30 years ago. Okay. And so how it's been has been kind of like a little bit of a shallow roller coaster. It has changed and shifted over the last 3 decades, right? But if I go all the way back to when I spent time in the quietness, I'd have to go all the way back to my childhood, because my mom, when she would stop us from fighting, my siblings and I, my brothers and I, a lot of times what she would do is she would make us sit outside where she found us, or she'd spread us out so that we couldn't really talk to each other without raising our voices, so she'd hear it, right? And we had to face with our backs to each other. And she left us there quietly. And if she heard us talking, that just added more time on to what we were supposed to be doing. And so after a while, with it being quiet, you start noticing things around you in nature, the sky, trees, grass. And eventually you're just kind of sitting there quietly, right? And things calm down. like 100-fold from what was happening earlier. And so that was my first introduction into being in the quiet, being in the quiet. And sometimes it would take quite a few minutes for us to get into that quiet piece, right? Now, I can't tell you what my brothers went through because they've never really shared that with me. But we do remember being told to sit quietly somewhere. So I noticed a few highlights in those 30 years of my meditation where things would shift and change in my meditation. For instance, back in 2009, when I would go into meditation, it was completely quiet. My spiritual team wasn't having a conversation with me. They weren't talking to me. They weren't showing me things. I'm in my inner eye, right? They weren't doing that. And I would ask, so what's my next best step? And it'd be quiet, it'd be silent. And so it got to the point where I would fall asleep, which isn't like me to fall asleep in a meditation. Um, and I was also reaching a piece of frustration. It's like, come on, where are you guys? And I know in my heart that my team is always here with me all the time, 24/7, 365. Okay. And so for them to go quiet, it was like, what? All right. So, and I've shared this piece with you guys before. I had two friends that don't know each other. Okay. Energy readers of one kind or another. Jewel Sheldon with palmistry and Tammy Gullen with angel connections. Okay. They don't know each other, have never met each other, and yet they were validating and confirming each other's messages to me from my guides in spirit. And in both of them, they were saying they didn't understand. My spiritual team wasn't understanding why I wasn't celebrating. Why I wasn't celebrating because I had completed what I had set out to do here, and that's why they weren't replying to me because I was asking the wrong questions. Okay, so there was nothing left for me to do but to go on holiday and to rest and to have fun is to have fun. So that was in 2009. So I literally kind of floated through 2009. Was I still doing meditations? Not as often as I had been in the past. When I would go into meditation, it was more about talking to my team about the fun things, right? And the things that Paul and I wanted to do, to go places to be, and see if they could help bring us the things that we needed to support that, with dog sitter, with finance, and that kind of thing. So I kind of floated through 2009. That is a huge shift and change for me in my meditations, right? So in the past, my meditations were a lot about question and answer, right? Question and answer. I would ask a question and I'd wait for the answer. That was my meditation. Sometimes it was just being quiet, but most times I was on task. I had an intention. And I'm a Sagittarian, so once you shoot the arrow, it goes straight, right, until you hit the mark. And so in the past, that's what my meditations were like. And then there was another huge change in 2012. In 2012, there was another shift for me in my meditation practice, and that was looking at sensing, feeling, seeing, right? The experiences, the lessons that I learned from past lives and how they mesh with and are meant to be helpful in this life. And so 2012 started that part of my meditation where it was kind of like being told a story and then seeing it in flashes and pictures in my meditations. So I was back to working again, basically. And then if you Move forward again, another milestone, another shift or change for me came when my mom moved in. As time went on, my meditation times got shorter and shorter and shorter. Okay, to the point where the last year that she was here with us, it was like if I could catch 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there, right? And it wasn't consistent. It wasn't consistent. The only time it got really consistent is when was it 2020, early in 2020, when I was doing the morning getting grounded meditation, right? And for me, that was more in service. It was more about um, the doing piece. Okay. All right. And then mom walked on. And in January, and I've shared this with you guys, the recalibration journey, right? I was in meditation and I was asking for assistance and guidance. And what am I supposed to do now? How am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to go through this piece of grief and mourning, right? And what it was they told me to go back to basics. Chop wood, carry water. And for me, that means going all the way back to the very beginning when I first started doing meditations. And I was sitting in the quiet because I didn't know what the heck I was supposed to be doing. And every time a thought would go through, that monkey mind, that busy mind, right? And how I was practicing and how to quiet those thoughts, or at least to recognize them and let them go, right? So I went back to that. And that led to just sitting in the quiet and listening and listening. Now, there wasn't always a lot being said to me. There were times when messages came through, but that wasn't the purpose of my meditation. The meditation was meant to be in the quiet and in the stillness and to sense or feel that stillness, right? Yeah. So those changes. And so my question to you is, have you noticed those changes in your meditation practice over the years, and especially over the last few months? Have you noticed anything? Hey, Deanna's here. Hi, Deanna. Good to have you here. And Karen's here too. Hi, Karen. Good to have you. And Clara's here too. Thank you for being with me this evening. I appreciate it. So, and even if that means that you stop meditating, because there's times even now where I might go a couple of days and not be in meditation. And I'll tell you why in a second. So there's times I left my water upstairs. Rats. Let's see if I can get Paul. Well, Paul's out on a walk. Anyway, there's times when I feel the call, I feel the pull, I feel the desire to be in the quiet, right? And this is different than when I'm doing automatic writing. See, I get the sign, right? The 333 from my team that they have something for me. And to sit and be quiet to do their automatic writing. Completely different. Completely different. This is actually going into my meditation room, being in the dark by myself in the quiet. Not asking any questions, not trying to understand something, right? None of that. None of that. But just to be there and just to be in that quietness. So Deanna is saying, you're in a service beginning in March was a monumental for me, connecting with what I was told to do by my guides. Asking for twice a day is sometimes trying. However, has increased my centeredness, gratitude, and listening. Yay for that, Deanna. I'm so glad you shared that. Because for me, in that reflection, what do they say about hindsight being 2020, right? That looking back at that, really that was the beginning of going back to basics and taking care of that self-care that we always talk about, right? But we seldom do we actually carry through with it. And if you're doing those meditations twice a day, that really is putting your focus on you and your centeredness and your groundedness so that you're in a position to be able to experience what is being brought to you, right? Yeah. And so that really is going to back to basics in my world. Now, I want to share something with you that the other day, I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago, something like that. I was flipping through YouTube, right? And and I was going to the things that I subscribe to. I don't usually just go just through YouTube just to see what's there. I usually go through my subscriptions and see what is new out there. And there is a channel that I follow, and some of you may also, and that is Higher Self. Higher Self. And they have an eclectic group of readers and channelers. Okay. And I noticed that they had a new video out. And it's they're talking about the Arcturians, and they were talking about the evolution. Okay. And it was, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. And so I sat and I watched. I actually listened because there's not much to watch, but I was listening to their channel. And what I realized was that this particular video was really about the validation of the changes that my meditation practice had been come to. And so I found this synchronicity, this YouTube video that was presented to me in a way that I thought, oh, that's interesting. What's that about? And when I started listening, I realized that it was a validation of those changes that I've found in my meditations, right? In how I am experiencing my meditation. So a few live stream shows ago, I shared with you about a message that I got in meditation, that it was my team making a suggestion that imagine what it would be like if you believed that you are your soul, that your soul is what is sensed first by others and by you before your personality, right? Before the physical body. And I shared with you that it is a shift in consciousness, right? Okay. So this particular YouTube validated for me that what I was sharing and what I experienced was more than spot on. It is actually kind of ahead of the curve in a bit. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get caught up with you guys just a second here. Got to scroll up. Rob is saying the running daily spiritual practice gag with Julie actually did take root in 2020 and was what got me through the COVID crisis. Yes. And all of those little things that were happening up to the point where you made the decision that, yes, I'm doing this, things were happening even prior to that, right, Rob? So it puts you in a position to say, okay, this is it. I'm doing this. And Rochelle says, this past year has been like a roller coaster, not necessarily in a bad way. Upcoming birthday is bothering me, or I am becoming more aware of my mortality, not actually scared of death, just a wonderment. Yeah, that it is a change. It's just shift. It's a shift. And honestly, Rochelle, and I watched my parents go through this, is there's a moment when we accept the place that we're in, right? We accept the stage of life that we're in and what's going on around us and how we're experiencing it. Yeah. My dad was always saying, "Oh, that's for old people." And he was in his 80s when he was saying this, right? Yeah. And so it's in that shift, in that feeling. Sometimes it is in the thought process, yes, because that's a part of us, right? But when it reaches our emotions and our feelings, that's when we experience the big change. The big change. And Rob is saying, recently I found a huge boost in it, which I've needed a lot lately. Yes. Yeah. And if you hadn't been doing this practice for some time and allowing yourself to adjust to it, obviously you were getting prepared for this particular piece in your life, right? Yeah. And it's going to be interesting, Rob, to see how things shift and change for you when you're on the other side of this piece, and how your practice, your meditation practice, will shift and change as well, right? Because it's meant to. It's not meant to be stagnant. And Karen says, I've noticed that meditation is not so much about sitting still. Lately, it's about quiet time in a walk, doing dishes, or petting my animals. It's more time given in appreciation. My team comes in those moments. I lately just go with this, and I'll tell you why. Hey, look who's here. Hi, Jocelyn. Good to have you here. Okay, so here's the thing, is that with this last change, the shift in my meditation, is that it really is about being in that quietness, noticing what it feels like, not necessarily being able to find the words to describe it or to express it, right? And here's the thing, and this is the one that just kind of clicked for me, is that how we feel connected to the universe, to all of creation, to the creator in our meditations. It elevates our frequency so that it is closer to our original frequency, right? And that's what we're sensing. And so when we are outside of our meditation and we recognize that feeling, that is the next movement. That is the next shift in consciousness. So that, Karen, you can experience those moments that you had in meditation in other places in your daily life. Even if you're right in the middle of a piece of chaos, if you're doing the 9 to 5 thing and you're still having to put yourself out there in the 3D world, okay, and you find yourself filling that piece of a moment, even if it's a moment of that contentment or that peace or that sense of completeness or wholeness or whatever you want to call it, that feeling that you have when you're in meditation, when you're sitting there quietly in the quiet and in the stillness. It's when we can actually experience that in other parts of our daily life. That's huge. That's huge. That means, this is what I got out of it. That means that when we slide back and forth energetically, okay, we're always doing spiritual growth. That never stops, that never slows down, that never ceases. It's constant movement by energy, okay, our spiritual growth. So when we are remembering what it's like to be in to have our frequency at a higher frequency, sometimes what happens is that we slide back, right? We slide back into that lower dimension. So if you're existing in the fourth dimension and your slide is experiencing it slide back into the higher third, and then moving back in. That's giving you an opportunity to compare and contrast the duality, the polarity in the third dimension, and realizing that is in complete contradiction to how I feel when I'm in meditation, right? And honestly, all you have to do is recognize it. All you have to do is think, oh my gosh, that doesn't feel good. That's all about polarity, duality. You see it, you sense it, and you move away from it. You move back into that feeling of wholeness, that feeling that you have when you're in meditation, because that's our connection to the Creator in that unified field, right? Yeah. So that sliding back and forth, what happens is that gives us a chance to be aware, sensitive to that shifting and changing back and forth. And our desire gets stronger to be in that other feeling of contentment and wholeness and peace, right? Yeah. Now, for those of us that have been in the fourth for a while and we're sliding into the fifth, and we spend a lot of time in the fifth, maybe the lower fifth, but we slide back into the fourth. And we realize that, wait a minute, the fourth is really about a lot of shifting kind of energy, right? And it doesn't feel quite as good as the fifth. So we're going through the same thing, right? Yeah. And when we sense or feel the duality in the fourth, that has more to do with the belief systems that we are letting go of. Because we can see it, we can sense it, we know what it is, and there it is, but we're giving an opportunity to learn from that and to change that for yourself. And you can only do it for yourself. You can't do it for someone else. Does that make sense? That was I got it from that video, because that was the validation for me. And all that kind of shifting and changing of my meditation practice. And I don't know how many times I've shared with you guys, I could be doing the most mundane thing, right? And feeling that connectedness. And that's when I would get a title for a show, or I'd get the reveal of maybe bigger planetary things, right? Yeah. So, oh my gosh. Okay. So Rob is saying, unfortunately, spiritual practice does not include beer and sausages. No, not usually, but now you know that there is kind of the sliding into that contentment, or whatever you want to call that feeling you have when you're in meditation. It really is about the feeling, the emotion around it. So it's possible to have that and have your beer and sausage too. Rob said that would make the path easier, I know, right? I do. Karen says, duality, perfect description of how I feel in my life. A foot in each world, right? And honestly, Karen, as soon as we recognize that and we see it, we acknowledge it, and okay, I see you. I see you. I know what you are. That puts us in a position of choosing the choice. Do I want to be in that frequency, or do I want to be in the other frequency? Do I want to feel the way that I feel in my meditations? Right. And there's those of us that are making those choices. A lot of times you won't find us watching mainstream whatever. Okay. Especially the infotainment, the news. You won't see us doing that. Right. We don't normally get caught up in those conversations, those heated conversations about in politics or those kinds of things. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not aware, that we're not informed. It's just that we don't select sides because we can sense or we want to know what is the bigger picture here. And we're talking to our spiritual team about it, right? So show me, what is this really about? What's underneath all of this chaos? What's really there? And we want to have the bigger picture, right? Now, does that mean that we're always in it? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because we're still growing. We're still experiencing soul growth, and sometimes you don't have that until you make the decision that you're going to let something go. And for a lot of us, it's some of those belief patterns, right? And we've all experienced it when we were still really in the third dimension, and we were making those decisions about maybe it was giving up an addiction, maybe it was ending a really tumultuous and violent relationship, right? So we were already experiencing those decisions. But as your frequency starts to shift and change and getting closer and closer to your original signature, the decisions about certain things aren't as, I don't know, how do I want to say this? They're not so decisive. They're not so black and white. Okay. They're not those really huge change your world. Now, it doesn't mean that doesn't change your world, but they're not those catastrophic things. Right? Yeah. Because when we're stepping out of that duality as a human, because we're still in a human experience here, is that at least we know that that is showing us duality. So what's really underneath this? Right? So we can get to the point of understanding so that when you make your decision, you know what you're stepping out of. And Rob says, I'm not aware. I don't know a damn thing about anything. There's been times I don't know. I don't know. Been there, done that on more than one occasion. Yeah. And sometimes for me, those are plateaus. They feel like energy is not moving. Nothing's changing. What am I doing? I'm supposed to be resting. I'm supposed to be doing a relaxation, right? Going on holiday in those plateaus. And in those times, it's like, especially in the beginning of those, it's like, I don't know what's going on. What's happening? It's because the energy is shifting and changing. I'm shifting and changing. And so it just needs some earth time for it to evolve and come to fruition. In other words, get grounded to the earth plane. And how does that happen? It happens through our physical body, right? We know that. We know that. We've been shown that so many times. Okay. Now, I just want to check my notes quick. Oh, here's another one. Is that we are refraining from, here's a good one, refraining from recreating something from the past. Okay. Now, what does that mean, right? Redoing something because maybe it felt good the first time around and we were really in the groove, right? And it felt good. And so I still want to be in that, but we can't go backwards. And so if we try to recreate that or something like it, what happens is it doesn't feel as good as what we remembered. And sometimes it doesn't even happen because it's already been complete. Right? And so when we recognize that, we can sit in that place with the creator in whatever that means for you and however good that makes you feel. And then we start looking at our life a little bit differently. It's like, what do I want to create now? Because I am a creator, right? Yeah, that was another piece of that video that I thought, oh my gosh, that's so true. Because a lot of times what happens is that we might feel some peer pressure around it, right? Whether it's friends, family, your culture, your society, where they think, those belief systems that if you're not doing something, if you're not um, succeeding and striving, right, making something happen, that you're not really being productive. Or perhaps the people in your life don't want you to change, because it upsets their apple cart a bit. Yeah, been there. Been there and probably will be there again at some point. Yeah, that peer pressure. And um, all right, so our meditations are really a way to be able to observe, to witness our own spiritual evolution. And so that's what I meant by our meditation practices should evolve, because energy is constantly changing, constantly expanding and growing. And so there's a part of our life isn't in that place of love and expansion, it's then in constriction and stagnant. And so we need to take a look at what's supporting us and what's not, right? And so for me, here's this really helpful question, is to ask yourself if there's been times when you've stopped meditating, or it felt more like I'm supposed to, like it's another job, right? And if you ever find yourself in that place, then you need to do some self-reflection about your meditation practice. What about it needs to shift and change? Was it already offered to you and you went back to doing it the same old way, right? Right. Like Karen, Karen's going out there on walks. She's spending time with her animals. That's her meditation time. Now, if you're still wanting and it still feels good to you, and you're in that connection with the creator, and you're in a more traditional kind of meditation where you're doing mantras or doing something like that, that's okay too. That's all right. What's more important is that you're feeling those emotions. You're feeling what it's like to have that connection. You're not necessarily having this big long wish list, and how do I do this and how do I do that? Bring me this or bring me that. That you're actually finding that good feeling in being in the quiet, listening to I'll call it the heartbeat of the universe, right? To feel that wholeness, that you're included in that you're not separate from it. All right. Rob says, I very much have to, even if I don't want to. And that's okay. And that's okay. All I'm saying is that when there's a shift, is to go with the shift and not get stuck into something that is that was servicing you in the past, but not as good in the present, right? Is to go with it. Do not neglect the morning meditation, Aleister Crowley. Yeah, yeah. And that morning meditation, however it feels, you feel the connection to the creator. That's the most important thing. And for some people, it would be in more of a ritualistic kind of way, right? Which is good. And other people, it might be good taking that walk out in the woods. Or for like Rochelle, down by the river and spending time with the river, feeling the connectedness with the river, right? Yeah. So all I'm saying is be aware of that shifting of your meditation practice. Rochelle, thank you. Great words, a lot of wisdom. Well, I'm just sharing some of the things that have happened recently with me. And I'm hoping that it's a way to be able to start a conversation, right? All right. I'm just checking my notes here. This is what I wrote this afternoon. I said, meditation evolves into resting into you as a full spiritual being, listening and feeling in the stillness, aligning with the creator in the oneness, noticing how it feels rather than the description. It leads back to that I am, or I am my soul. Yeah. So this validation coming from this video, this YouTube, was it was one of those connections to my team. You know, they wanted me to get this information. It was a nudge that I accepted. And the thing is that when we're accepting of where we are at in our lives, our state of being, no matter where that is, okay, is that we're creating from that particular place or experience. So if you're finding yourself sliding out of fourth into third, back into fourth, or the from the fifth into the fourth and back and forth, is that how you create and what you're creating is coming from that experience. From that experience. So all we have to do is really recognize it. And it's really one of the important steps in our evolution. You know, the recognizing that and accepting that we are a divine being and that we're already complete. And it's in the growth that we signed up for, is that's where we're finding the shifting and the changing. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought maybe you guys would enjoy. I don't know if any of you actually listen to any of the higher self YouTubes, but I thought you'd like that. If you haven't experienced them yet, I thought I'd put it in the comments. I might have misspelled Arcturian. Rochelle, wow. Yeah, exactly. And wait, Julie's here. Hi, Julie. Good to have you here. Yeah, anytime's good time, right? You're never late. You're always on time. That's Indian time, or Hawaiian time, or Mexican time, or Grecian time, or Sicilian time. You know, we all the cultures, we have it, right? We all have it. And here's the other thing that was a validation for me, is that my study with Dronvalo Melchizedek and the tiny space of the heart meditations, the unity breath meditation, all of those things that I learned years and years ago and that I've taught, really is on this same path. It is the path. And for me, that led to where I am today, right? Yeah. And so when we find ourselves realizing all of our experiences we've ever had in this particular life, leads us to our soul growth in the moment that we find ourselves right now. So everything that you've ever experienced in this life has led to this moment, this experience that you're having. So when I say that, and I'm doing these live streams and I have Star Nations, I started doing activities and that sort of thing when I was a kid leading up to this moment. Everything. Even all the studies that I've done with the different teachers, all of the healing of my emotional and mental traumas leads me to this moment. And so all of it is needed for here. No matter what decisions we made in the past, whatever that path that we took, and sometimes it was the rocky road, deep in the thickets. And other times we did take the higher road, and that was a completely different experience, right? All of those. And I think that when we get to the point of not seeing it as good or bad, right? In that duality is when we can see it for what it was and is, and that is for our spirit to grow, to experience, to add to our wisdom. Yeah. And that doesn't make it mean that all those experiences that brought you to your knees makes them smaller or less. No, not at all. It does make them feel more complete, that there was a higher purpose for them, even though that might have been the lowest part of your life. Yeah, because you got through it, or you're getting through it. And when we do that and we find ourselves on the other side, sometimes it takes us a while to really appreciate it and see the bigger picture, but we can get there. And we have a spiritual team to help us to do that, right? And our meditation times are important, no matter how they manifest themselves. Whether it's like me, you're sitting in a darkened room and you're sitting in the quiet with not a whole lot of stimulation going on around you, or if you are taking that walk in the woods, right? Or you are doing a more specific ritual every day or nearly every day. That's the important thing, that we find our sense of wholeness and completeness, that we are a part of the universe, that we're not separate from it. That's huge. That's really huge. All right. So, one of the things that I wanted to make sure I shared with you is that, one of my upcoming I actually have two upcoming classes. We have a drum making class coming up June 12th, and that's full. So that we're not taking any more registrations for that. But the following weekend is Journey of Remembering, and that is about what we're talking about tonight, is creating from that unified field. It's about all those studies that I did with Drunvalo Melchizedek. And so we do have room for 2 more people in that particular class. And so if you're interested in something like that, you can always contact us and register through our website. Let me get that for you. And before I do that, I'm going to pull this up. And here we go. I'll give it a solo while I get the information here. So the journey of remembering, because everything that we really need to know is in our hearts, in that sacred space of our heart. And so it's actually not really learning anything, but remembering. Of remembering. There we go. Yeah. And sometimes, how spirit usually works with me anyway, or through me, is I get these validations that I'm on the experiences I've been having are spot on. And so when I saw this video and relating it back to my own meditation practices, I realized that when I was given that phrase, you are your soul. I am my soul. That encompassed this whole shift in consciousness and how my meditations have evolved. Um, yeah, and it's all good. It's all good. So I wanted to share that with you. There we go. Yeah. What's Julie saying? She's going, the new office space looks great. Oh, you saw the short video I did this afternoon? Yeah, that painting those walls was quite an experience because we had to paint the ceiling, and the paint that we bought, the color and everything, the paint that we bought was supposed to be able to cover in one coat. Well, I was covering this really bright shade of pink. And so it actually took 2 coats to cover. But you know what? It took us the weekend, the holiday weekend. It's done, and now I'm moving on to the next piece to actually move the office in there. I need to get an area rug and get the curtains up and that kind of thing. But we're so much closer than what we were. Oh, Karen says, definitely the experiences that rocked my world are my most valuable. I recognize that my lessons in those are deeply rooted in how I empathize with others. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can actually say, well, I understand where you're coming from. And my experience wasn't exactly the same, but I feel you. Yes. And they can feel you telling them something from your heart. Right? It's just not words. It's actually the empathy that's coming through. And that's big. That's big. She says, your shirt this evening looks the same color of your new office. Well, yeah, it does have this color green. This is kind of like a sagey green. There's times in that office where it does look like this color. Yes. Yeah, I do like it. I walk in there and I think, oh, I love this color. I do. And of course, Thunderbird. How can I go wrong with that, right? Yeah, it's good. It's a good color. And I can't wait. Now let's see, next week, June 8th, I'm not going to be having a live stream show on Tuesday, June 8th. I'll share with you why. Is that June 8th would have been my mom's birthday, would have been her 102nd birthday. And I'm going to do something special that day, just between her and I and the creator. And I'm not sure how it's going to affect my energy. I could be just fine. But if I'm not, I know what it's like when that fatigue hits, because it's the emotional energy with the grief in the morning that really just kind of zaps me. And so I didn't want to have to be in a position where I would cancel a show, right? So um, next Tuesday, I'll be taking that night off and doing some things, but I'm going to share with you, but probably not until the 15th. Okay. Is that right? Yeah, that would be Tuesday the 15th. And I went on the 15th, we're going to talk about how we feed spirits, how we feed the spirits. And so you can join me on the 15th for that one. Okay. All right. So with that, I know I'm going to end a little early tonight, but I just wanted to share this piece with you about the meditations, because I know I'm not the only one experiencing the shifting and changing in the meditation practices, right? And I know that my goal, my intention, right, is to be able to experience my life in those moments in my meditation, when I'm feeling that connection to the Creator, when I'm feeling that peace, when I'm feeling that contentment and feeling a part, being a member of the whole universe, right? That wholeness. That's what I want to do. And something that I did a long, long time ago when I first started learning how to dowse. When I went through the very first class I had with an older guy, an older gentleman, one of the elders where I used to live, he taught me how to dowse. After my very first class with him, I was telling Paul, I said, I was explaining how Lynn dowses. He doesn't even use rods or pendulums anymore. He just feels it with his physical body. He can walk across a piece of property and feel the underground water and feel those kinds of things, right? And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to use the dowsing with the pendulum or the rods as a bridge between my intuition and my ability to sense nature and all that I'm dowsing for. Okay. And so my intention with dowsing was always to get to the point of feeling it in my body before actually getting the answer from the pendulum or the rods. And I got to that point. And so with my meditation, it's right along the same lines. Okay. Is that experiencing my life from that place of contentment and wholeness and being from that place all the time. Well, a good portion of the time, all the time, as much as I possibly can. That's mine. That's mine. So Deanna said, even if your celebration of her life enlivens you, be with it fully. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Deanna, for saying that. And I don't know what it's going to be like. So I thought, you know what? I might just need some time to do some self-care. And I'm going to take that time. So I know you guys will understand. And I'll share with you those things that I experience. You know that. And yeah, you're welcome, Julie. You're welcome. All right. Thank you so much for being with me this evening. I do appreciate it. And I look forward to our time together, not this coming Tuesday, but June 15th. And we'll be talking about feeding the spirits. Okay? All right. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. And Bama Mina, that's Potawatomi for until we see each other again. I love you guys.